Welcome to the Future Proof Leader podcast. I'm Jessica Rapach, co-founder of Twin Legacy Solutions. And today I have Brian Beck of Proxurve Solutions. So Brian, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Super excited to talk cybersecurity today. Very excited. I want to open it up just for you to tell the audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, what your mission is.
Sure. Appreciate it, Jessica. Thank you very much. And I know that cybersecurity is always a highly exciting topic. So we're going to roll into that. For Proxurve Solutions, we're a cybersecurity AI consulting firm. We also do the day-to-day. So some people like to put us in the box of IT. Other people, we try to help organizations grow through a strategy with technologies, whether that's going to be because of their cybersecurity posture, especially if they're going to be a compliance-based organization, or they want to be able to leverage AI in a strategic manner. Let's identify through leadership how that is going to be able to enable their team, identify ROI for their organization. Let's get out of the hype. Let's get into the practicality of it so that we can actually allow them to be strategic and scalable going forward.
So Twin Legacy Solutions, we're all about strategy. We're strategic leaders first. We also, people put us in the AI IT realm as well. But I always say, listen, you can't do any of that stuff if your processes aren't optimized, they're not streamlined, they're not efficient, because then you're just going to optimize something that's really not well run. So let's jump in. I have some questions for you. Most leaders treat cybersecurity as an IT issue. Okay, from your perspective, where does cybersecurity actually belong in the organizational structure and why?
Most organizations, it is 2026, at least today it is. So in 2026, the leveraging of technology is what allows businesses to be able to be as agile as possible and adapt to different changing needs that are going on in the environment, right? Competitors come in, they try to innovate, they do something different. You got to be able to pivot, adapt, adjust. And as you do that, you need technology as a foundation. Technology can either be a great enabler, just like AI can be, or it can be a great disabler, and it can be a weak point that others can exploit. And I think you and I both know, being in this space, people love to send the crazy emails that get people to be able to click on crazy links or crazy pictures. And all of a sudden we have an exploit. Do we have the right security policies and everything else in place to allow our business to continue to scale and move forward? The other aspect of that is if you're in a hybrid environment, so you got some people that work in office and some people that may work remote, or like me, some days I'm in the office and some days I'm remote. So you got to be able to take your company data along with you secure, and it's got to be scalable so that we can run, pivot, adjust, adapt, and continue to grow and scale the business cost effectively as well as strategically. So our people know even how to use it.
Are you working at the C-suite level? Are you working with the IT, like director of operations? Where do you fall when you're talking cybersecurity and IT?
Yeah, primarily at the ownership, CEO, CFO, controller level is where we're primarily engaged because it is part of the business strategy. The other guys carry the liability. So those are the people we speak with.
Gotcha. Now you mentioned AI, right? Everyone's trying to add AI into all the layers of their organizations. So what risks do organizations create when they adopt AI tools before having that security and data strategy in place?
I talk to a lot of builders as well as CFOs and all kinds of people across different spectrums, right? So with the builders, I typically just tell them, here's something simple. So think of me as the concrete guy. The concrete guy is the one who sets the foundation so that you can build all the cool buildings up on top of it and then make those things scalable. You can do whatever renovations you want to be able to do because you've got that solid foundation underneath it. Now, if you have a crack in your foundation, where's the water going to go? It's going to find that crack. It's going to exploit that crack. It's going to cause further damage underneath that foundation. And who knows what it's going to take to fix it or how much money it's going to take to recover from it. AI will find any and all cracks, and people who get creative, I get creative, but when you get creative, you wind up finding information and opportunities within your organization that you should not have had access to because the guardrails were not set up correctly. So let's figure out what the right use case is. Let's figure out with businesses, like, you want to get what out of it? You want it to produce what on what team level? Let's review the environment. Let's make sure that the foundation is going to be there so that you can enable the tool as much as possible, which also complements and enables their teams as much as possible and allows you to be able to continue to grow and move forward. When you don't, man, those cracks get found real quick.
Now, I'm curious to know, do you get called in once the cracks are exposed, or are people being more proactive these days? Are they calling you because they're about to establish some kind of AI tool or IT system and they want to call you in to make sure they're doing it the right way? Or are you getting the phone calls like, hey, we have 5 cracks and we need to get it fixed? Like,
Yeah, sometimes we get those calls. Thankfully, right now, it's kind of in the infancy of rapid adoption, right? Last year, it was like, ooh, this AI thing, what is it?
Yeah.
And some people were kind of playing with it a little bit, but they were doing it as individuals, not organizations.
Yeah.
And then I don't know about you, but January 5th of 2026 happened. And it was just boom from the time I walked into the office, and it's been just rapid fire ever since then. So typically what we wind up getting is conversations around people who seem to recognize the conversations that we normally have. So it's like a friend of a friend kind of thing. Or if we're doing an educational session, we do those for a number of different verticals and professional organizations and whatnot. They'll hear about these guys have a different approach. It's more of a strategic thing rather than the commercial I just heard on Sirius XM or something like that that says, give access to your team and enable everybody. And to me, that's, the cold sweats start to happen, right? The little pitter patter of an aneurysm. Something along those lines, like, no, do not do that. So, when we have those conversations, it's slow down. Let's identify a strategy. You do strategic planning in every other aspect of your business. This is no different. So let's take these lessons and let's put them here.
Yeah.
And thankfully, we talked to them before.
You mentioned training, right? So that's something that I feel like we've been seeing a big deficiency on. I don't think people are investing a lot in the training that goes behind, the rapid release of AI. So does your company offer training before you go down a certain path, or is that part of the strategic sessions that you have with companies? Because I think a lot of companies out there are unsure where to start. And I think that the training is definitely a foundational strategic move before you implement. And then after you implement to ensure you understand that system and how to, sustain it. Because a lot of people bring us in, they want a system, they want the processes improved, then we leave and then it breaks and then they've wasted money. So you bring the training in before or after you implement?
The first thing that we're going to wind up doing is identifying what's the use case. And is it a viable and realistic use case? One of my partners likes to say we need to crawl, walk, run. Yeah. So crawling is first, let's figure out if what you think conceptually AI can do for your organization is realistic. And if it's realistic, great. Let's start with small risk use cases that we keep internal. And as we identify that, now we start to understand what does training need to look like? Do we have HR policies that are going to also start to define acceptable use policies? So here's the official tool or tools of the organization to be able to produce what, don't go outside these tools, blah, blah, blah. It also plays into cyber insurance liability conversations that go along with it. But once we understand where we want to be able to go, that informs us about who we need to start working with to be able to train to produce what kind of result.
And what we've noticed also is that there's a lot of connection with like security or cybersecurity with systems that are being implemented. But then, as you probably are seeing, AI is being used across the organizations in different ways. Like people are using ChatGPT, Claude to kind of look up, do reporting, all those things. But what we're seeing is there's not many companies that have like policies in place on how to regulate that. Unfortunately, we don't have many laws governing AI yet. It's like a gray area. Well, how do you come up with SOPs, guidance on how your employees are allowed to operate in that? Because obviously, if they're looking up things on Claude and doing reporting and emails are being written and stuff, there's a security risk there as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
I just actually was invited into the Indiana Executive Council on Cybersecurity last week. So I got to go down to my first session last week, and this was a hot button topic that everybody was talking about in the room. And as you go through that, they do recognize that there are no laws that are governing what responsible or ethical use around AI happens to be. There's also very minimal guidance around private business, especially if you're not a compliance-focused organization, what minimal or responsible use of cybersecurity should be in your overall organization. So there's big gaps in both of those. A lot of them come down to what the ethics of the leadership is going to be within the organization, right? Leadership sets the tone. Leadership needs to set the example. I use this tool. I'm excited to produce this tool because, right? You set the example by doing and by talking about it. That starts to inform right around your HR policies that you already have in place for what regular acceptable technology use is, right? Most of them are even still struggling with the fact that I have employees who use their personal phone. I don't have a policy around that.
Right.
Yep, we should have had that like 20 years ago, I know. But, right, as you walk through that, so you have one for acceptable use on a laptop or acceptable use of a PC. Okay, now culturally, you guys accept what? Right? You accept what result from people, ethically, your organizational standards, or your We want to call them culture cards, kind of outline what the mission of your organization is. You outline also internally how you expect employees to treat or engage with clients or each other. This should be an extension of that. So let's start filling that out so that it mirrors what people are already used to. It helps to drive adoption, doesn't make it overly complicated, and I don't do something different over here, but everywhere else, I'm used to doing all this. If we can mirror those things and sit down and have the conversations, it's not that difficult to sketch out. The hardest part is, what tool do I want to use? That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and the questions we get, where do we start, right? So how do we figure this out? Like on a daily basis, there's all these new tools coming out, right? And even for us, like I'm transparent. It's very hard to keep up with all the tools that are being released. Which ones are best? What was great last month isn't the best tool this month. And so when people are asking us, well, what's the best thing? Well, hey, let's assess what you got going on, and let's do some more market research on what's coming out to see if our recommendations are still adequate for what you have going on in your organization. But it's kind of madness right now. I would say it's hard to keep up with.
I think some of the market research, the market research isn't able to keep up with, to your point, the evolution of these models and what the capabilities are, where the risks wind up being. So what we try to keep things as simple as possible, especially right now. This rapid adoption is what's driving all these things all over the place, right? Eventually, if history plays out as it typically does, things will settle down over the next, 12, 18, 24 months. And things will start to be much more standardized and accepted, and it'll be normal as opposed to the buzzword that it is today. So marketing firms have done a phenomenal job of being able to blow this thing up and set it on wildfire. Most people don't even realize the term AI has been around since like the 1940s. And we've been using this stuff, right? In like Google Maps and Apple Maps and talking to Siri and all this stuff for how many years now with smartphones, right? So this really isn't new, but the terminology and how it's caught on is new because the technology is allowing us now to be able to walk around with it in our watches, in our rings, in our phones. It's just so available. Now they're putting it in printers. I still can't figure out what the use case is for AI in a printer. But besides that, trying to be able to, if you're in a Microsoft 365 environment, right?
Yeah.
And some of my AI buddies don't like me saying this, although now they've actually started to admit, Brian, I think you might be winning us over. It takes a little time. Copilot is a very, very useful tool. But again, it has access to ChatGPT, like 4 or 5 different models. It has access now to Claude, but you got to make sure you've got the right license associated to Copilot to enable it to do what it has the capability of doing. A lot of people like to be able to go out and they'll pay for their Claude, and Claude is a very powerful tool. It's a good platform. It's got a lot of great features associated to it, and they'll do the paid Claude versus the Copilot already wrapped in your Microsoft 365 license. Those are 2 totally different animals. You got one that's enabled and you got one that's held together or held back, by its ankles with a 50-pound chain behind it. So if you want to go apples to apples, do the Copilot for Business along with the paid Claude. See which one produces the better result for you. So when we walk into an organization, the other thing we try to make sure people understand is if you're going to do the license for Claude, it's for the individual. It enables the individual. It creates the individual workflow. Notice the word individual that's in there. And even when you get the enterprise license, which does add a lot of the security features that you absolutely need, but when you get in there, you're still enabling individuals in the organization. When you're doing it through Copilot, the advantage you have is you're enabling your organization. And now I can make that scalable. It also provides oversight. It adds additional layers of security that we can put into play. Configuring third-party Claude to touch your 365 environment, it's a different configuration to be able to make those things marry up. You absolutely can do it. Absolutely can do it. So all the people who are Claude lovers right now, don't yell at me. I recognize it. But same thing with ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT has its strengths. It has its weaknesses. Gemini is doing a great job of being able to play catch up. Google is doing a nice job on their platform. They're doing a lot of investments to be able to expand it, give you a better experience from the user side of it, to get more compute power in the background, to get better results faster, all that kind of fun stuff. So if you're in a Google environment, Gemini is a very powerful tool. Let's figure out again, where do we want to go? What do we want it to do? Then we can identify the right tool with the right use case. Now we start getting to what's that magic word businesses use, 3-letter acronym, ROI. That's it.
Copilot also for us specifically gets on the back burner. You're right. You pay for it. You're already paying for it with the 365, but Claude does a much better job. We built some tools that kind of intersect, ChatGPT and Claude that kind of talk and learn your business, except, one. But yeah, I think it depends on what you're using it for. Speaking of people, let's talk a little bit about people, processes, and cybersecurity, right? So AI can strengthen your security, but it can also create vulnerabilities, right? So where do you see AI being most effective in cybersecurity today, and where is it actually increasing risk?
Where it's increasing risk is going to be availability to the data inside your tenant. If your security is not set up, if your data is not consistent, if it's not clean, if the metadata hasn't been done, those components that are building blocks for AI to be as effective as it can be, reduces hallucinations, makes it much more effective tool, then man, those cracks are going to show up real quick. The other thing that you wind up getting is the people who are already fearful about their jobs because it hasn't been messaged to them correctly that this is an enabler for you and I'm going to invest in upskilling to make you more valuable for the organization, that kind of thing. Then they fear much more and they are much more justified and quicker to the root to be able to say, this thing is terrible. It does not get me what I need to do. I can do my own job faster without it.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
And then you got to trying to shift that ship. Good luck with that. Right?
Yeah.
But if we can do those steps ahead of time and we message and we plan ahead of time, now cybersecurity is also addressed because we know what you want to do with it. We know where this tool needs to be able to go, where it needs to be able to have access to, and also where we need to put the guardrails around it so that, no, I can't get in here. Or if it's going to be rules-based or roles-based. Admin has different levels of access than CFO. CFO may have same level of access in some organizations as a CEO, or maybe not, depending on how the organizational structure is. So you've got to define those things. When you know what that is, you know how to build cybersecurity to stand behind it so the tool can just work. People can go off and they have great experience with it, especially accompanied by training and education. Those are key components.
Now, you bring up such an important part. I used to be in the government intel community. I was in corporations. Those permission levels, understanding who does what and what what the stipulation should be. Do you find that you have to provide a lot of guidance when it comes to these roles and in learning the roles and operations of each, CFO versus, CIO, all those positions? Do you help with that when you're integrating systems? Or do you feel like organizations have a pretty good handle, like, here's the permissions, this is appropriate for this person doesn't really need those permissions? Because when the wrong hands are in the wrong permissions, I feel like that's such a liability and risk to the organization because they don't know what they're doing and they could really mess things up that they don't understand they're messing up. So what's your take on
100% with you. I would say the more mature organizations with more mature leadership, when I say mature, they've been in the role for, more than 5-7 years kind of thing.
Yeah.
Those organizations seem to have a better understanding of what's needed outside the technology ecosystem. But now we need to take that and we got to validate and make sure that that's mirrored inside the technology ecosystem. So some organizations are set up, probably like you run into, better than others. The younger organizations are the ones that are a little bit more on the cusp, right? They like to be on the bleeding edge, things along those lines. They move quick. They're really agile. They're super agile. They're too agile, right? Yeah. You go into those environments and they don't have those things set up because they've never slowed down to take the time to set those things up so that they understand how that enables the pace that they like to work at, that they desire to work at. And now we got to try to rein them back and be like, hey, time out. We want to go here. You want to have a growth path of what? You want to be able to hit what kind of timeline? Okay, here's now all the work that we have to invest to clean this up because the last 10 years, you haven't done it. And that's going to be painful. And that price tag is going to be brutal. But next year, you guys are going to be on fire. And then you want to grow that EBITDA. You want to be able to sell your organization maybe for 20 times what your annual billing is currently today. You'll have the ability to command that kind of thing because there's less investment that's going to need to be involved. The next organization that you're going to try to hand it off to or sell it to is going to look at that. And when they look at that, because they're more mature and they know exactly what they're seeking, that's going to be their bargaining chip to say, this is why we're buying you down and my offer is where it's at.
You said something that kind of hit a chord with me in a good way. I worked in a lot of organizations and you said that it's really important for the people. The people are getting anxious about their jobs, right? And you're saying adding the AI should be enhancing their positions. And where we needed 5 people to do admin tasks, maybe we just need 2 and we take 3 people and redirect them into other positions, maybe AI, new positions that we can develop to optimize creativity or operations or some sort. Well, what's the overarching idea of what we're trying to accomplish? What is our goal? What is our goal?
Yes.
When you have that first and foremost, I feel like everything you do, whether it's cybersecurity, AI, process improvement, strategy, it really does make a big, big difference. So I like to end on like a philosophical edge, if you will. So here's a question. If a CEO, founder, champion of a company is listening and realizes that maybe they've heard what you had to say and they're not as secure as they should be at this time, what's the first strategic move that they should make before investing in more AI tools?
Thing is, do a review of your technology environment. So some MSP or MSSP, or maybe your internal IT, depending on how your team is built out and what their capabilities are and your confidence in them. Also, have them review what the information is and then sit down and ask questions. Trust but verify. If as a leader, you're not comfortable with the information that's being provided, if you feel like they're trying to talk around you instead of speak with you and help you understand how this accomplishes the goal and they're not aligned with it, then seek a third-party validation and walk through that. You've got to have clear communication on this thing. You cannot take a risk in just implementing it, and hope is not a strategy. I'm going to pray on Sunday and hope to God that we're all good. It's going to come back and it's going to have some kind of repercussion on you. If not today, it will be tomorrow. It's not an if, it's a when. So let's just plan. Let's all be on the same page, move forward, understand where you're at. That should help to inform what you're capable of doing going forward and being successful as well.
That's good advice. That's very good advice. Now, I know there's tons of organizations that are just needing that third party help out there on where to start. Like I said, I get so much feedback on like, I want to do the right thing. I just don't really know where to start. So people looking for your solutions, where else can people find you if they're looking for something?
So you can find us. I'm on LinkedIn, obviously Brian Beck at Proxurve Solutions, or you can go to our website, www.proxurve.com.
Brian, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I hope that any corporation that's a business or company already has something in place, but in the age of AI and this new push and this, revolution, they need to like really hone in on their cybersecurity on all levels, or what they're doing with their AI and their corporations and their companies, and the policies that are governing those, the ethics, understanding those things. So thanks for talking on this important, very relevant topic. And to our audience members, thanks for tuning in today. And we will see you next time. Bye, Brian.
Thanks, Jessica. Bye-bye.